This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwallpod Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 540 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your Stefan Butzko, and today we'll enter the 14th season of this podcast as Borussia Dortmund officially kicked off their preseason for the 2026-27 season today. That's me and my partner in crime, Lars Pollmann, on here today. We'll discuss Adeyemi's move to Barcelona, the Bundesliga schedule, and some other news and tidbits, and answer some listener questions. But before we do that and get to the headlines, Lars, why don't we introduce ourselves again to some new listeners that I assume will tune in since the World Cup is underway, and that always brings in new people to the fold. So, Lars, without any further ado, who are you and what are you doing here?
My name is Lars Pollmann. I, at this stage, I guess, am a former sports writer because the job market isn't treating me too kindly at this point. I used to write about Borussia Dortmund for Bleacher Report, which a lot of English-speaking listeners will probably know. Back then, they did club football. I don't think there's really much of that left. I then moved to a German publication and did that for, I think, 8 years. Moved to Dortmund in 2025, basically a year ago today. I am 37 and as such the senior partner in this show because Stefan is only going to turn 37 in December if I'm not mistaken. That's me. Who are you, Stefan?
Who am I? Well, first of all, happy belated birthday, Lars, since it was yesterday. You do share a birthday, well, not the birth year, but you share a birthday with a sporting director.
Or is he?
as the English admin put it, Lars Ricken. I am 36 and I am currently based in Philadelphia, but I am born and raised I'm not actually born, I'm born in Witten. Still begrudge my mother for that, but she was a nurse in that hospital in Witten, which is a small village, town, whatever you want to call it, right next to Dortmund, like 20 minutes away. But I've been growing up right next to the Dortmund Stadium. That's how I became a Dortmund fan. That's not really an interesting story, but I did write for ESPN for I think it was 5 or 6 years to cover Borussia Dortmund as a beat writer, and did a couple other freelance jobs here and there. But that was obviously the main thing back in the day. The podcast has suffered a little bit since I don't have my microphone in the mix zone anymore where I can play some English interviews on the show afterwards. But we're still hanging in there. I know we're not as frequent as we used to be. And as of right now, there's also not really a website where we write on. I think we used to do that too. I don't know about you, Lars, but actually I'm feeling the itch to write a little bit again. I was reading some old columns of mine recently. I was thinking to myself, well, actually I was not that shabby of a writer. Maybe that's just because I don't have the confidence of writing as well as I did then, just because I lack the practice. I do work in sports marketing nowadays, so I'm still involved with sports, but it's not soccer. My focus right now is more on motorsport and American football, believe it or not. So but we're not to talk here about motorsport and American football. We are here to talk about actual football. If you're a new listener, welcome. If you are not a new listener, welcome back. I've asked for listener questions about the move of Adeyemi to Barcelona, but also general listener questions. So we'll get to as many as we can in this episode. If not, there's always next week. I'm sure there are plenty of things to discuss. So let's start with the top headline. That is that Karim Adeyemi will join FC Barcelona for a fixed fee of 22 million euros plus 9 million in add-ons and a sell-on clause of 35%, according to Ruhrnachrichten I guess we'll start with the question/reaction by X, the Everything app user at Realityist, saying, I'm happy for Adeyemi and hope he puts it together on the bigger stage, but what the fuck? He doesn't really seem to be a Barca caliber player based on his track record. Thoughts on why Flick wants him other than taking a flyer for relatively cheap?
Am I to speak?
Lars? Yes, you are to speak.
Well, first of all, I think we should probably, put a reportedly ahead of the entire discussion, because as of right now, it's a rare Saturday evening, at least in Germany, record for us. So as of right now, it's all reporting, but I mean, we can safely assume it's done unless he, bombs the medical or whatever. So I'm certainly surprised at Adeyemi getting, an offer from FC Barcelona, arguably one of the, 3 biggest clubs in the world, and certainly his last season in Dortmund, and I would argue his entire tenure here, didn't really warrant that kind of attention on the market. I don't know how much of a market he had outside of Barcelona, because there was a lot of talk about, somewhat of a stalemate in contract discussions between Dortmund and Adeyemi's camp. His contract here was set to run out in 27, so this was the last real opportunity to make some money with him. I think the reporting is that Dortmund were looking for, let's say, 40 million, but given that Adeyemi basically gave his word to Barca, they had all the leverage, so I think 22 plus 9 million in easily obtained, as it seems, add-ons, and also the 35% sell-on fee that will probably come out somewhere north of 30 million, given, the 1 year left on Adeyemi's contract here, and also his performance level, especially last season. I looked it up immediately before we started recording. He played less than 1,200 Bundesliga minutes. And most of those in the first half of the season. He really wasn't that much of a factor in the second half of the season, at least in the Bundesliga under Niko Kovac. It seems like a fairly strong deal for Dortmund, who obviously now have another hole to fix, because they, as of right now, haven't really signed someone to take Julian Brandt's place in the squad, and now Adeyemi is also leaving. So those are quite a few goals and assists that you can could bank on, I should say, going into each and every season over the last few years. As for Adeyemi himself, it's a surprising opportunity for him. I think this is very much a coach-driven transfer. Hansi Flick knows Adeyemi well from his time as the Germany national coach. I'm pretty sure Adeyemi gave his debut for Germany under Hansi Flick. And I'm also kind of thinking it's probably a bit agent motivated, because Adeyemi is being represented by Jesse Fucci of Jorge Mendes, the super agent who probably has a few irons in the fire at Barcelona. So I think they probably thought of him as a decent market opportunity, because the fee is not that substantial for a club of that size. He's very likely to be on lower wages than some of the other players they might have targeted for this role, which is obviously going to be a spot starter, backup, an energizer off the bench. I mean, Barcelona are still very much well stocked in attack, even after Robert Lewandowski left. They also signed Anthony Gordon for, I think, 80 million to start the summer. So it's not like Adeyemi is going there as someone who's expected to play week in, week out. He's going to get, his opportunities here and there off the bench, maybe start games in La Liga against weaker opposition. And the thing that I was most curious about was that Barcelona obviously had Marcus Rashford on loan last season and had an option to buy him for a reported fee of 30 million. And they didn't go through with that, even though I think Rashford had a pretty strong season for them. And after talking to a few people who watch Barcelona more closely than I am, it seems like the argument for Adeyemi, somewhat surprisingly, I would say, from a Dortmund perspective, is that he's more diligent in tracking back, a bit better suited to, pressing, which Hansi Flick's game is obviously kind of predicated on. I would say Adeyemi has been maybe it's right to put it like this, in and out in terms of, his diligence in tracking back, defending and working. And it seems like Barcelona are kind of banking on the fact that getting this kind of dream move might turn Adeyemi into something that he hasn't been, at least on a consistent basis here in Dortmund.
Yeah, Adeyemi, with being 24 years old right now, I think still has a lot of upside. And I think one of the biggest criticisms leveled at him is that he never really had the utmost professionalism that was needed to become a world-class talent that, might be in him. I mean, he certainly has the wheels, the top-end speed to be a big difference maker. And, he did score a lot of winners for Dortmund, did, decide a lot of games for Dortmund in a positive way. I think I will miss him a lot because I like speed demons. And yes, was he an annoying guy to watch from every now and then, and not really doing the things you expect him to do, or not making really the step in his development you expect him to do? Yes. But at the same time, speed is just a weapon that it's hard to replace like that. And, he did score some amazing goals. In total, I think it was 36 goals, 25 assists in 146 games, and a little shy of 8,000 minutes for Dortmund since he joined in 2022 for, I think, 30 million from RB Salzburg. So, of course, also 27 yellow cards. He did have some defensive pedigree to him too. It's not like someone that would just chill up front and not track back at all. So I did appreciate that when, of course, he did track back, but like you said, it was inconsistent. Corey Wood wants to know, do you consider this an addition by subtraction? Not an enormous loss as far as the transfer fee goes, and I just never could deal with the lack of consistent professionalism and effort, not to mention the inability to seemingly ever make the right decision in the final third. Lars, do you think that is a addition by subtraction for Dortmund, or do you think that Adeyemi needs a replacement, which is also a question some other people have asked, since Niko Kovac is not Mr. Winger?
If he was Mr. Winger, he would probably play in Community. Niche reference. Addition by subtraction is kind of, mean-spirited. I don't think Adeyemi was that big of an issue in terms of, his comportment or his behavior off the pitch. And he tended to be a bit of a distraction, but when you look at how many players who were or are still active in the World Cup have criminal records and serious allegations leveled against him, I think what Adeyemi did or was supposed to have done usually was, child's play. So,
what did he even do? I honestly don't remember any quote unquote distractions, to be honest. Yeah, there was this one mystery box thing was kind of dumb and funny, but I don't know if that really distracted anyone.
Yeah, when Niko Kovac said multiple times that he doesn't speak to any player more than to Karim Adeyemi, that kind of tells me that he is a player that needs a bit of, guidance. As I said, I don't think he was, that big of an issue in terms of, being a distraction, but it's all part of...
I think he was loved in the locker room.
By and large, I would say, yeah. But I would say that about pretty much any player that was part of this team over the last few years. I don't think they had many bad eggs. From a sporting perspective, even though I would say Adeyemi was one of the more frustrating players to watch, and I called him in our awards show the biggest disappointment of last season, and I kind of laid out how he wasn't really all that important, going at least by the numbers, especially towards the end of last season. I would still say that he obviously had value. As you said, the sheer athleticism, especially coming off the bench, he hits the ball incredibly well. His numbers were overall quite good, I would say. Nothing amazing, but bearing in mind that he came over here as a 20-year-old from the Austrian league, there was also a jump in quality. So it's not like you can expect that kind of player to have from the get-go 15 plus goal seasons, especially considering that Adeyemi was kind of a secondary striker at Salzburg and then mostly played out wide for Dortmund. I still think that he needs to be replaced. Maybe also his profile needs to be replaced, because we talk all the time about them not having wingers in the squad. And now they also got rid of, or about to get rid of, the energizer in terms of sheer athleticism, as I mentioned before. So especially coupled with the lack of a Brandt replacement as of right now, I would say it's hard to argue that Dortmund aren't maybe even considerably worse off than they were towards the end of last season. But, the summer is still quite young. There's a lot of opportunities to be had. I think Dortmund are doing a pretty good job right now in terms of clearing the runway for acquisitions, because they are obviously also letting go of a few other players, such as Kiel, for example. Diandrama is probably going to leave. Jan Couto is on the verge of joining Kobo on loan, so there should be spots in the squad and also funds to go on a bit of a shopping spree, which I think is more exciting than letting go of players. And obviously they have signed 3 guys so far, but all of those transfers are long in the past, and we don't know how much of an immediate impact those guys will have. So it's understandable, I guess, when I think a lot of Dortmund fans are a bit apprehensive as of right now.
Yeah, same. I mean, final words on Adeyemi. I think it's a bit of a shame that Dortmund rarely played him in his ideal position. As you said, secondary striker is probably where it's at. And he was, if he was utilized more on the wing than centrally, if... All right, he was just like very loud thunder. Anyway, I think it could have, for me at least, also made sense to play him a little bit like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I think that shift from a winger to a number 9 really did Aubameyang a world of good. Now, I don't think Adeyemi is that clean of a finisher. And the biggest what if of his career, at least so far, will be the chance in the Champions League final against Madrid, where he, even with all the rich history of Lars Ricken lobbing the ball over the keeper, he tried to round Courtois and just could not finish the chance off. Who knows what would have happened had Dortmund scored there. Certainly would have probably also done worlds of good for his transfer fee. I mean, Napoli were interested in him last year, I think, for around a package of 55 million. At least that was what Patrick Berger reported, so I'm not entirely sure. But talking about potential acquisitions, Tristan Borchers wants to know, does this mean I can get my El Mala Dortmund kit, Lars? Does that mean that?
I mean, you can personalize your kit all you want. I wouldn't necessarily bank on it, because the problem with El Mala wasn't that Dortmund didn't have a place for him in the team. They could easily have planned a squad with both Adeyemi and El Mala. The problem was the transfer fee that Cologne are rightfully quoting for him, because Cologne and Brentford had a deal in place which got nixed by El Mala himself, because he didn't really want to go to Brentford, who I don't believe are playing in Europe next season, or this season, I should say now. He's supposedly worth roughly 50 million to Cologne, which is at least 15 million more than Dortmund have ever paid for any player, not including sell-on clauses for Ousmane Dembélé, for example, to his former club. So unless Dortmund and Cologne find a creative solution which is more in line with what Dortmund usually want to pay, I kind of find it unlikely, or the idea unlikely, that Dortmund would completely smash their transfer record for someone who has only played one Bundesliga season. Admittedly, a very strong one, but I think the risk assessment is probably a bit too high there. So again, unless obviously Cologne and Dortmund, that's a short distance to cover. So I'm sure there are some positive links just in terms of working together. But I would as of right now, personally not buy a Said El Mala jersey with, what would it be, number 13, I think he wore at Cologne. I'm still somewhat skeptical about that one.
Yeah, so I guess we can move on a little bit. You already talked about it a little bit, but 20-year-old Cole Campbell has joined Ole Burg's former team SV Elversberg. The American youngster is joining them, I think, for around 6 million euros. I think that's what Runnertechnologies reported. And Dortmund, as far as I know, do retain a buyback option. Now, Cole Campbell never really had much of a chance to break out at Dortmund. He was loaned out for the last half season at Hoffenheim. I don't even know if he actually touched the field or not. I haven't looked it up, but I don't really recall him playing much for Hoffenheim either. Lars, I think Cole Campbell has the talent to become a good to average Bundesliga player. Do I think that Dortmund will exercise their buyback option in the future? Not really. So is this a good landing spot for him? And do you think that him sort of getting the foot in the door to be a professional first team footballer in a top European league really gets him through? You know, obviously you can talk about how he's already 20 years old, but I feel like that is shifting a little bit. Maybe I'm tainted a little bit by the, maybe you can call them exceptions, Undav and Woltemade, but they are all late bloomers, and 20 years old is still pretty young. So what do you make of his tenure at Dortmund and obviously his chances to play more consistently at Elversberg in the future?
First of all, I'm not entirely sure we can call it a tenure at Dortmund, because, I mean, unless we watched a lot of under 23 and under 19s, which at the time of Cole Campbell's involvement in those teams, I didn't either. So I'm also not entirely sure there's actually this buyback option, because the transfer fee that Elversberg have sent to Dortmund was higher than most people anticipated. So usually when they concede a buyback of some description, the transfer fee itself is probably a bit lower. So I don't know if that's the case. Maybe Dortmund have kind of a matching right. That's also an option usually. Or something like a right of first refusal, to put it in NFL terms. So at any rate, I don't honestly believe that Cole Campbell is necessarily Dortmund material. I think he has a few qualities that are going to turn him into, as you said, a solid Bundesliga player, perhaps. For example, his athleticism, again, just like with Adeyemi, on admittedly a somewhat lower level, but he has some athletic traits that you can't coach. So it's now on Elversberg to turn him into something more than that. I'm pretty chuffed for Campbell in terms of landing at Elversberg, because there's probably not been a better club at developing talent in Germany over the last few years. A lot of good players. You already mentioned Woltemade. He had a stint at Elversberg in the third division, was instrumental in their promotion to the second division, and others as well. Fisnik Aslani, who's probably still a Dortmund target, maybe depending on what happens or doesn't happen with Serhou Guirassy over the next few weeks. And I'm also pretty sure, maybe you remember, Stefan, when Ole Burg was presented to the media here in Dortmund, I think it was Lars Ricken who mentioned that in the past they tried to get players on loan to Elversberg because they knew about their track record in developing players. It never really worked out. I wouldn't be surprised if Cole Campbell was one such case, that they tried to get to Elversberg and couldn't pull it off.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. I would also not be surprised if the podcast ends prematurely because the lights are flickering here as there's a big storm passing over Philadelphia right now. You also already mentioned Kiel Wittchen. He has been on loan to VfL Bochum. I think Dortmund touted him as a big talent for their central midfield, and I think they were pretty hopeful that he could make a breakthrough soon enough, that he would become a useful player for them in the first team sooner than later. Right now he's 20 years old, and as you already said, on his way to FC Midtjylland, to Denmark, to follow his former under-19 coach Mike Tulberg, at least according to the Danish newspaper Tipsbladet. So we'll see exactly if this deal goes through in the next days or weeks, for a reported fee of around 4 million euros. Again, I think it's a little disappointing that Kjellvetjen did not become a first-team option for Dortmund. People, including myself, had high hopes into him, but if you've seen him at Bochum recently, I don't think the step was going to happen, honestly. What are your thoughts on him and his future? I also don't know if Dortmund will going to have a buyback option or a matching right or anything of those sorts.
I think it's pretty much the same as with Campbell. I think ultimately the quality to play at the top of the Bundesliga level isn't there. It's a bit, or even more sad with Kjellvetjen, because he's a Dortmund boy. I think he's been in the club a very long time. And he had a few good showings when he first started out. I think I remember a great assist
to Marco Reus against Darmstadt or Augsburg, I think.
I want to say Augsburg, because Reus scored a free kick against Darmstadt in his final game for Dortmund. Yes. In the Bundesliga. Yeah. And obviously, Stefan, I'm very worried for you, because if Kjellvetjen doesn't make it at Dortmund, what will happen to your guy Musa Kaba, who you invested your entire life savings on?
Not to worry, Lars, because my entire life savings are not that much right now. Unfortunately, that chemo for my dog was very expensive, so they're somewhat depleted. But I don't know. I don't know what will happen to me, Lars. Honestly, I think I'm in very good hands, because now the way is even more open for Kaba to get through, because there's no Kjellvetjen in his way. So there you go, Lars. Who may not also be in his way, it's a fullback that sometimes tucks into the center, is Jan Koot. He is about to make a move, I hope, to Serie A team Como. But there's still a disagreement between the two clubs, whether it's going to be a loan with an obligation to buy or an option to buy. I think we are both in agreement that it's time for Jan Koto to find a different team, change of scenery, all that. I think it's fair to say that it just didn't work out at Dortmund, and I hope that this deal goes through sooner than later. Do you have any other thoughts on that, or should we just move on?
I'm a little surprised that Como are going for him, because if people know a little bit about them, they are one of those data-driven sites with, in Cesc Fabregas, probably the hottest young manager in Europe. I'm a little surprised as to what the data might have to say in a positive vein about Jan Koto after his time here in Dortmund. I mean, it's not like...
Well, maybe...
Go ahead.
Maybe they just see the data of his before time. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like when Dortmund signed him, nobody understood what they were thinking, because obviously he had just played a fairly strong season for, what was it, Girona? Must be because they are the partner club of Man City in Spain. And I mean, to be fair, I think there were also quite a few glimpses of what Kutu could do for Dortmund. It's just that he ultimately never really put it together. And the issue is that for all the good he does on the ball in the attacking phase, I think he's basically unplayable defensively, because he's so weak in duels. And obviously at Dortmund, that spot is usually occupied by Julian Riasson, who, if nothing else, is always going to give you great effort and physicality, and that's just not Jan Koto's game. So it was kind of obvious. Last season at the start, Niko Kovac tried to, give Koto more opportunities, because obviously I think we can all agree that in possession, he's probably a bit more gifted, let's say, than Julian Riasson, but ultimately Riasson won the job back decisively in his favor, and Jan Couto basically didn't feature much in the second half of the season, and as such, having potentially the opportunity to make up most of what they paid Man City for him is pretty good, even though obviously it would be preferable to get that, immediately and not have to hope that he, plays well at Como. But then again, like Como are in the Champions League, they will have a lot of games, obviously, so he should have ample opportunity at least. And maybe we are looking at, 20 million in 2027 for a player who's already gone for a year. So basically the reverse of what happened when Dortmund signed Couto, because obviously he was first on loan here, but with an obligation to buy, which kicked in, I think, after 6 or 8 games or something like that. A Sebastian Kehl special deal.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, especially since Dortmund spent so much money on Couto. And, I feel like Dortmund, whenever they splurged on fullbacks, more often than not, did not work out. I mean, Nico Schulz, also a very good example for that. He was also not a cheap player and probably one of the all-time worst transfers. I think that was still a Michael Zorc transfer, to be honest. But, yeah. Let's move on to another player that Dortmund have signed, but more for the under-23. It's Takato Yamamoto, who is a Japanese midfielder. He's 18 years old. Like I said, supposedly strengthening the under-23s, going to play in where they know, the 4th division. So we'll see exactly if he has actually potential for the first team or not. He has been loaned from Gamba Osaka, and Dortmund are assessing him as a talented number 8. I think they do also have a buy option in this deal. But again, I obviously do not watch the J League anymore. I don't have that time on my hands, so I have no clue if he's actually any good or not. We'll see. Lars, I don't know if you have any more insight to provide on that than I do. We can racially profile and say that Japanese players, more often than not, are technically sound.
I plead the 5th.
No, it's just like from from the J League, I think you can make that assessment. That's a technically good league. But like I said, I don't know. You can plead the 5th. I don't know if that applies to you, since you are a German citizen. So, but yeah, Lars. No, honestly, do you have any insights or thoughts on him at all, or not?
I think he had the shortest ever highlight video set to terrible dance music I've ever seen on YouTube. That is the extent of my knowledge about this player, whom I'm sure is going to develop well at the under-23 level, and will probably also accompany the first team on its Asia tour this year, because I'm pretty sure they're also going to Japan. But
yes,
I think it's somewhat unlikely that he's going to be an issue, let's say, for the first team anytime soon.
Which brings us to another signing. Liam Claude Kante has been signed from Croatia, to be exact, from the under-17 team of NK Lokomotivia Zagreb. He's a center back, left-footed, 16 years old. And Thomas Broich, the sporting director of the youth academy, is looking forward to the new addition, saying that Liam is a defender with a very good feel for the game. He is strong in one-on-one situations and has a composure needed on the ball. We're convinced that he'll take his next big step with us. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not big of a scout in Croatia, and I've seen, let's say, 1.5 minutes of footage of him. And I'll be honest, maybe an exciting talent that will strengthen Dortmund's team in a year or two. But again, it's going to be a big step up. Is he regarded as one of the bigger center back talents in the world right now? I think so. But what does that mean for a 16-year-old? I don't know. He is already pretty tall. I can tell you that. I hope it's not the Sukuta Pazu effect, where he's just above average in his development for his age, and then couple years down the road, you won't feel the effects anymore. But it's nice to see that Dortmund are making moves to hopefully strengthen the first team, and left-footed center backs are always welcome. Not that easy to find, and if we go by Nico Schlotterbeck's timeline at Borussia Dortmund, he's probably going to stick around for another year or two, if that. So to have some young guys come through the youth ranks would be nice. Again, Lars, without doing any racial profiling this time, do you have any thoughts on the signing for the under-19s?
I like the fact that you now have to specify whether or not to racially profile Dortmund players. It's a good look for
I was making
all of our new listeners.
Just making a joke.
For all of our new listeners, Stefan, coming off the World Cup, obviously. Not like America has a problem with racial profiling.
No,
I haven't even seen whatever footage you have seen of this kid. All I can say is that Dortmund's under-19 have a fantastic centre-half who just can't stay healthy in Gianluca Riedel. If Conte, is that his name? If he's anywhere as good as Riedel and stays healthy, he should become a pro, whether that's at Dortmund or anywhere else. I think it's kind of folly trying to make this out for 16-year-olds. But then again, isn't Lamine Yamal, wasn't he 16 when Spain won the Euros? It might have been. So it's not entirely out of the possibility that such a young kid can make huge steps, but obviously coming from not even the biggest club in Zagreb to Dortmund, there should be a bit of a learning curve, ramp-up period, so it's not like we should expect him to feature for the first team anytime soon.
Maybe we'll nicely transition with a question about Mathis Albert. At Rampage Bobby asks, what are your thoughts on Mathis Albert, and does he have a legit shot of making the first team this season? I would go as far as saying yes. I think he does have a legit shot because I think he's just that talented. When we talk about the United States men's national team and their state currently, although for their potential they played a decent tournament, but if you're looking at prospects and players that will strengthen this team, I think Mathis Albert is one of the guys that's very high on the list. I think he certainly has flashier skills than Samuel Inacio, and what we've seen in the couple minutes he's played for Dortmund recently was encouraging. However, he is still very raw. But I think as the season continues, and it's always a pretty long season, I think Dortmund will start to integrate him more and more, because I just think talent-wise he should have what it takes to at least get the odd 20 minutes here and there. Will he make a real push for the starting 11 at some point? I don't know. But traditionally, Borussia Dortmund are a team that allows for these things. I don't know if Niko Kovac is the perfect guy for that scenario, but at least in my assessment, what talent, as far as his talent goes, I think he does have what it takes. Now, if it's this season or maybe rather next season, not sure. But I think Mathis Albert is someone we can all be relatively excited about. Lars, what are your thoughts on the young American kid?
I think I've said it a number of times in previous episodes that I thought whenever watching him and Inacio at the under-19 level that Albert was far more impressive. Now, whether that's Inacio kind of being disinterested because he was already too good for this level, which also applies to Albert, maybe there's something in that. And to also be fair, I think Inacio has very much surprised me ever since he had his chance in the first team in the second half of last season. I think Albert might have gotten it at the same time pretty much because, again, talent-wise, he's also there, despite being younger than Inacio. I just think that his position doesn't really exist in the way Dortmund are playing, because whereas Inacio is a bit more centrally minded. I guess you could call him a number 10 in some ways. Albert usually hugs the left touchline, likes to dribble and turn across goal and those sort of things. And that just doesn't really exist in Dortmund's setup as of right now. I think if in the new season there were games where Dortmund moved to a back four for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem very likely, then I think Albert would have a pretty decent shot at getting minutes off the bench as the left-sided midfielder or left-sided winger, however one wants to call it. But given his lack of experience, also lack of bulk, he's not really an option to play as a left wing back, because obviously there are a lot of defensive duties to be dispatched on in that spot. So it's just a bit unfortunate for Albert. In those terms, I think Kovac isn't the perfect coach for him. But again, as I already mentioned in the previous episode, I think Kovac actually deserves quite a bit of credit for slow playing it with Inacio, because when a young player makes an impact actually when getting his chance, that usually tells you that he got the chance at the right point in time. I don't know how much more sense it would have made for Inacio to play 20 minutes in February if he perhaps wasn't ready then. So given that, I think Albert ultimately will get his opportunities. It might just not really come this season at Dortmund. But again, he's 16 years old, I think. Maybe he's 17 by now. There's still a lot of time. And as you already mentioned, he's definitely someone that American fans maybe will watch with more interest, because he's also kind of a player that they don't really seem to have. Just the technical ability, the creativity on the ball. I think he is a more impressive version of what Pulisic was when he was a young kid at Dortmund, which is obviously high praise, because Pulisic gets quite a bit of grief these days, because I think the American football public turned him into, or soccer public, I should say, tried to turn him into something that he really isn't. But I mean, in the 10.5 years, I think it's now since he's made his debut at Dortmund, he has, had a pretty fine career for a young American kid from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, his Dortmund stint was pretty positive. He has his breakout here, and of course marred a little bit by injuries. But when he was playing well, and the sky was the limit. And I think the theme of slight injuries has maintained through his playing career. And maybe American football fans are a little bit annoyed about another talent coming through Dortmund, because with Pulisic and Gio Reyna, there are two talents that are a little bit more in the doghouse right now. But so maybe we'll get to ruin another one. We'll see. But no, honestly, I'm excited. I also don't want him to be loaned out for the selfish reasons that I just want to see this raw youth in my own ranks, even if just sporadically. But I think Dortmund, considering the depth chart right now, also just need that talent, honestly. Obviously, also the off-season is still long, so maybe in a month or so, a loan would make a little bit more sense for him and his development, and also Dortmund. But until then, we'll see. Now, Lars, let's shift our attention a little bit to some schedule talk. The Bundesliga schedule did finally drop a few weeks ago or so. We'll obviously start the season with the home match in the Franz Beckenbauer Super Cup against Bayern Munich on the 22nd of August, which is something I personally am very much looking forward to. And I was rooting for Bayern to win the cup just for this fixture to happen. The Super Cup is a game that matters a lot when you win it, and doesn't matter at all if you don't. So there's not much downsides. It is obviously a bit of a promotional game, but I do enjoy it. I'll be honest, I enjoy it. It's, as far as I know, also over after 90 minutes if there's a tie and it goes straight to penalties. And then Dortmund will not traditionally start their season how they usually do it with DFB Pokal, because of the Super Cup, because that's basically parallel to the DFB Pokal first round matches. But Dortmund will start the season at home to Hamburg, and then on the Tuesday after will play in Hamburg's stadium against HEBC Hamburg, which is, 4th or 5th division team. Obviously, it should be an easy win, but for them, it's probably a highlight and also fills their bank a little bit more with a lot of people coming to see that in the bigger stadium. However, it does kill a little bit the, I guess, romanticism of the German Cup. And highlight fixtures, if you will. A couple of things I always look for is when are the Bayern games, and of course now that Schalke have finally been promoted again, when is the derby? And match day 8 and match day 25 is when Dortmund play at Bayern. And crucially, at least to my liking, is that the second game, the return leg, if you will, is the home leg. I prefer that way rather than playing Bayern away in the second half of the season. And match day 29 is also when Dortmund will host Schalke, and match day 12 is when they travel to Schalke on the 4th of December. So I think these fixtures lay very nicely in the schedule in terms of strength of schedule. Lars, I don't know if you have any thoughts on sort of the first slate of games versus the last slate of games. You can assess that if you want, but for me at least, those key fixtures are put pretty nicely, and also none of these games are at the back of an international break, which is also relatively nice, because I hate when there's an international break and then you have to travel to Munich. I feel like that always kills the rhythm a little bit. Not saying that this is an advantage or disadvantage for Dortmund, but in terms of looking forward to this game, it's nicer without an international break in between. These are my thoughts on the new schedule. Do you have any?
Not really. I think starting at home is nice. I think the final match day is away to Cologne. Did you already mention that? Is it even Cologne?
No, it's away. No, it's away to Freiburg. Cologne is the final home match.
Whatever. I mean, quite honestly, I've stopped really caring too much about this schedule, because you have to play each team twice, and every perceived advantage or disadvantage, I think most of it is probably just hogwash that we come up with during the downtime in the summer when there's nothing else to talk about. I think the most interesting aspect to me is usually away games on the back of Champions League games during the week, because sometimes that can be quite a bit of travel. If you are drawn with a team from Portugal, for example, that's a bit of a flight. Obviously, Eastern Europe is mostly off the table these days, but you could, for example, also go to Istanbul, which is pretty far away. And then if you then have, another flyaway Bundesliga game, that kind of can stack a little bit. But even then, they are accustomed to playing in the Champions League and the Bundesliga, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. So the other interesting thing for all clubs, obviously, this season is that there is no longer the dreaded first international break after, 2 or 3 match days usually over the last few years. Instead, there is one large international break with 2 weekends of no Bundesliga football after, the 6th or so match day. So the start is going to feel less disjointed, but then there's going to be this big break in the middle of, the first half of the season. I honestly don't know whether I prefer this. I probably have to experience it for the first time, because usually those international games after 2 or 3 match days in the Bundesliga were kind of, uninteresting, because players aren't really in form. And obviously, it, again, kind of disjointed the Bundesliga season itself. So maybe this new way of doing it is more interesting. But then again, 2 weeks without Bundesliga in autumn doesn't feel right either, does it?
No, does not. But that's what we'll just have to deal with, honestly. Are there any other things you want to discuss, Lars? In terms of Julian Brandt replacements or other prospects you are eyeing that you think will fit nicely into Dortmund, or do you want to have a more general discussion about Dortmund's transfer dealings, or maybe also look at the World Cup performances of Dortmund players? Are there any things you would like to discuss, or should we knock it on the head here?
I mean, the transfer business is just incomplete as of right now. I hope it's getting resolved sooner than last year, because I'm actually such a loser, Stefan, that during this off-season I listened back to a few episodes of last year.
Oh boy.
And I listened back to our prediction episode, which wasn't great from either you or me. Matthias actually did pretty well, but you said they were going to come 7th. And I think you said verbatim that Niko Kovac is not the kind of head coach who gets you to 70 points. I guess you were right, because they got to 73. I said Dortmund were going to come 5th, but I put in the cowardly caveat that we recorded that episode before deadline day, and if they made enough signings, then I would perhaps revise my statement. And obviously they made a few signings towards the end of the window, and as we all know, they played one of their best seasons in recent years. So that goes to show that even we, after, 549 episodes so far, can go wrong. It doesn't happen often, obviously. But yeah, I mean, the transfer business is just incomplete. Maybe we should spend a few minutes on the World Cup, just because we kind of opened with that being a reason to reintroduce ourselves, as Jay-Z would say. We are recording, as we mentioned earlier, on Saturday, so Norway with Julian Riasson are playing in 90 minutes against England.
Mm-hmm.
I think Norway probably like the feel-good story of the World Cup. Riasson's performance is not too notable, I would say. He's also missed some time through injury. And obviously Norway, it's all about Erling Haaland. And also Switzerland are playing Argentina in the middle of the night. I have no idea who came up with that scheduling. It's 3 a.m. in the morning here, so I'm definitely going to spend it on the couch fast asleep. Gregor Kobel was the hero in the shootout against Colombia, was it? Yeah.
Yep.
With one save. It seems kind of funny that Gregor Kobel has now won 2 shootouts over the last 9 months or so, including the one at Frankfurt in the Cup. But in the Bundesliga, basically every penalty he faces with Dortmund is an automatic goal. Overall, I think Kobel probably been Dortmund's most impressive World Cup performer. I wouldn't have said that early on, because Felix Metscher had a really strong start against Curaçao and Ivory Coast for Germany, but then he was absolutely terrible in the game against Paraguay when Germany were eliminated. Nico Schlotterbeck obviously only really played 1.5 games before getting injured, which I guess we will touch on more in the next episode, just looking at time right now. Waldemar Anton and Maxi Bayer playing bit parts for Germany. Who else was involved? Benzebaini for Algeria. Didn't see much of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw him play. It wasn't that good, honestly. I mean, he was center back, and he
in a back four, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just not his best role, I would say.
No.
Am I missing other Dortmund players at the World Cup?
I don't know. I have one important question left to ask you is, what exactly happened back in the day when Don Mikel Merino was a Dortmund player that he never made the breakthrough to the point that he's playing at now? Because I watched the Spanish team with a lot of sorrow and regret, and I feel like you probably even more so than me.
I think it was mostly a lack of patience on his part, because he obviously came here on the back of a promotion season with Osasuna from Segunda División. Is that like La Liga B or something these days? And then he came to Dortmund, which at the time was a very strong team under Thomas Tuchel. Didn't really get too many opportunities. then got some opportunities, but had to play center half, which I guess because of, his prowess in the air and physicality made a little bit of sense. But seeing him now as, I would say, Spain's strongest striker, even though he's not really a striker, but he just has such great instincts in front of goal. He went on loan to Newcastle, if memory serves, played all right there, and then was sold to Spain to, what was it, Real Sociedad, I think. I don't know if Merino would have ever worked out at Dortmund, and I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't still be playing at Dortmund. So in those terms, I guess my remorse level isn't as high as yours, Stefan, but it's certainly a bit peeving that, an obviously talented player, in my opinion, just didn't have enough patience, and also Thomas Tuchel didn't really know how to use him. But again, that stuff happens all the time at a lot of clubs, and at least in this case, Dortmund didn't really suffer a huge financial loss, as it arguably was the case with Alexander Isak, because obviously he went to Liverpool for more than 100 million euros, and that is money that Dortmund might have made from him if he developed here.
Yeah, I think in terms of Alex Isak, it was certainly the case that Dortmund should have just trusted him a little bit more and given him more opportunity instead of, putting second-rate backup strikers in front of him. And in terms of Mika Merino, I think one of the big factors of why he didn't really make his breakthroughs probably Julian Weigl, who was very crucial under Thomas Tuchel and German international. And I want to say heart and soul of that team, but he was certainly a centerpiece. And I think every tactics blogger back in the day was really in love with the way Julian Weigl played. And it was sort of a magical time for him, because I don't think he really ever replicated that the way he played under Tuchel for Dortmund with any other team. I mean, until once Peter Bosz came in, Weigl quickly fell out of favor because he has a very certain way to play, and at Gladbach he has never really returned to those heights as he had at Dortmund. So there we go. That's all in the past now. We will, however, look forward to the future. I should mention that Dortmund's first preseason game is against Oberhausen on the 18th of July. I think the kickoff time is 5 p.m. local time. So, I'll be tuning into that one. I'm not entirely sure who is even there to play. There are not a lot of players around right now. And it is interesting, honestly, that except for Argentina in the round of 16, there has always been a current or former Dortmund player on those teams. So, just wanted to mention that.
And Argentina
would have had.
We're going to take Leonardo Balerdi, but he got injured before the World Cup and had to be replaced. So Dortmund would have been 8 from 8 or something in the quarterfinals.
Yes. So we'll see how Argentina does against Switzerland, because if Gregor Kobel saves every shot, then it is likely that there will be some Dortmund representation in the semifinals, one way or another. But we'll be back next week with another episode to answer more listener questions and see if there are any more updates to discuss. Until then, hopefully we'll also get to introduce or reintroduce rather Matthias Zug. But all you need to know for now is that he's very old. And I'll just say until next week, enjoy your summer and goodbye.